So here we are at City Hall with Joe Walsh. We are here for the recent appeal that the city and the city attorneys are trying to do against the judge's federal ruling for excluding activists and voices of dissent at City Hall. So what do you think about this appeal, Joe, and how they want to keep us all out of City Hall?
Well, originally they gave the city attorney 10 minutes on this appeal. It was supposed to be presentation, okay, let's do the appeal. Well, unfortunately for them, a number of good activists showed up to testify, including myself and the ACLU and some other really good people. So it got a little complicated. Here's what they're suggesting. They're suggesting to go to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and say to them, the judge is wrong. And the judge is wrong that I do not have a right to come back to this building and present grievances to my government, City Council. Judge Simon basically said after 28 pages, it's a very complicated decision, but he did say this: I am not going to be the first judge to decide violating the First Amendment is okay if a local official does it. And he said, I ain't doing that one. So that's what they would have to appeal. Now there's a couple of interesting things on the legal side, and I'm not a lawyer, but there's a couple of interesting things. Number one, there is no appellate or Supreme Court decision that talks about exclusions. None. So if they go to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit agrees with Judge Simon and me, they will now have affected 9 states, because the Ninth Circuit covers 9 states. Their decisions cover all those people. So they will make me a folk hero in 9 states, because it's the only case that will be handled about exclusion. There are no others in that level, the appellate level. So they backed off. They said, whoops. And not only did I tell them that, but the ACLU told them that also, that they should not appeal this, they should let it go, they should rewrite their ordinances. And Judge Simon even suggested in his decision that they have some tools. They can throw me out. They can threaten to have me arrested. And they can also look at exclusions from a very narrow standpoint. So some of the commissioners argue, well, what about somebody who is terrifying our people? How do we keep them out? Well, Judge Simon seemed to imply you can do that, but you have to show very specific. You can't just say Joe Walsh is annoying, so we're going to keep him out. You got to say Joe Walsh has threatened the mayor. He has actually said he was going to physically hurt the mayor, and they don't have that anywhere, because I believe in nonviolence.
I think that they're more actually scared of freedom of speech and activists voicing any opinions of dissent than they are of any violence. I mean, when you look at Portland as a city, it's a pretty relatively low violence city compared to most big cities in America, you know, so I don't think that there even really is per se a necessarily a big threat to even their personal safety, but it seems like they're more scared of activists exposing their corruption than they are for their physical safety, you know.
That's what they say. They say, okay, you know, we have to do something about these guys. And who are they talking about? So in one argument, they're talking about Joe Walsh, but they can't produce anything that would validate their position. So then they talk about somebody else that had a backpack, that it turns out that they arrested the person that owned the backpack.
Yeah, and then they talk about a guy who had a knife outside of City Hall, and
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well talk about a shooting that took place in Northeast Portland or whatever. I mean, that they couldn't even bring up any actual threats of anyone who's actually done any violence at City Hall. All they could do is say that activists have been disruptive, and that's basically the basis for their case, you know?
There was an interesting point in the whole conversation when Commissioner Fritz said to me, well, or in answer to something that I said, she said, well, Mr. Walsh, you know, it may have started with you, but now we have other issues that are involved. And they brought it on themselves because I sent a request in for settlement, and all I asked for is the exclusion stop and a public apology from the mayor. And I think the big thing was the public apology because now they can't do the exclusions, and there's some questions about does it flow over to other exclusions like TriMet? What is the hearing officer going to do about that? Now, we know that we had at least one, and he happened to be a video guy, that was permanently excluded that had been rescinded. So it's having a rippling effect already. That's what activists do. We throw stones. We're not here for friends. We're not here to be nice. We are throwing stones. We send in the diplomats later on to figure it out. We stand outside and throw stones. And that's what we did on this, and we won this one, and it's a great victory.